Hello everyone, just trying to find some appropriate background music so that I can repost this later. There we go. We have been working on the crocheted hexagon cardigan, and last week we talked about decreasing the cuffs on our sweater sleeves. I have gotten one cuff decreased. I will show you how to do those decrease stitches. I don't really, I don't know. Looking at it this way, it doesn't look too bad here, but you can see where the decreases were done. They don't quite look like a cluster because they all didn't come together. And I know there's got to be a different way to get all of those to come together with 3 separate stitches. But I was able to decrease, get the sleeve to turn around here. This was the finished cuff here at this colored row here. I added 3 rounds using the granny stitch decrease, and I decreased the cuff to a point to where I am going to put a knitted cuff on here for my finished sweater. So for the regular crocheted cuff, I'm going to show you how to work that today, and I'm going to show you how to do this decrease. So we're going to work this decrease over on the other sweater, the other half, your other hexagon. And I will be uploading this to my YT account so that it will be there in the crochet along. Oh. So I have to sew up the seam. So if you weren't here last week and you missed it, I've got all these granny squares yet that I have to finish up. If you were not here last week when we sewed up the seam for the sleeve, you'll get to see that again. And I'm going to use the same color that I ended my last row on, which was that reef color. I'll need a yarn needle and a decent length of sewing thread. I do it similar to the mattress stitch with one little difference. I knot it up here in my corner where I start, but I go down from the top and I have the right sides facing up. So I was wondering why this was all done up like that. I was teaching someone how to crochet yesterday. Brand new crocheter, and yesterday where they were severely frustrated with themselves, and today they're like, oh, I got it. So just practicing the chain and getting to learn how to hold the yarn and stuff. New to all types of yarn crafting altogether. And I don't think I need that long of a string. We're going to cut this almost in half. Ooh, that was a lot of string. So I've got it threaded onto my yarn needle. And what I have done is I have folded my hexagon. Now I'm going to take my camera up just a little bit higher so that I can demonstrate again how to fold your hexagon. You are going to pick one corner and you're going to run all the way down to the next corner on that same side. You're going to lay that out flat on your table. The bottom corner here, we are going to trace that all the way over to the corresponding corner on that same side. We are going to take and put those 2 corners together. Okay? And then the one that we laid out flat on the other side of this, we're going to trace up this corner that we just put to this one. We're going to follow that all the way up to the corner right here. That goes up here with the other side that we isolated out. Once you've got those 2 together, everything will come together and it will look like an upside down L. Or, yeah, one way or the other. It looks like an L shape. you're going to seam up one of those sides. It doesn't matter which one because they're both exactly the same, and that becomes your shoulder seam. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to seam all the way down across here, and I'll show you exactly how I seam it. I can show you the seam on my other side, which was already done. Right here, we have a nice, neat little row of stitching right down the middle of these two rows. No lump on this side, no lump on the inside whatsoever. So it's not seamless, but it doesn't have the seam bumps in it. And I'll show you how I do that with this piece here. All right, we've got our sewing thread. I'm going to start down here at our corner, and I'm going to hold it like this. I'm going to actually butt the two pieces together instead of laying them over each other. Laying them over each other builds bulk. I'll show you how not to build bulk. Now, what I do in the corner, I will isolate out the two chains that make up our corner. One chain goes to this side, one chain goes to this side. We're going to find the one that goes to this side, and we are going to work into that one. I'm going to bring my camera back down here so I can see my comments now. I might have to make them a little bit bigger. Becky, I'm doing good today. Yes, it's going to be really, really neat. I am going to knitted cuffs. I will show you how to do a knitted cuff, and I will also show you how to do a crocheted cuff. So that way, if you don't knit and you need to do a crocheted cuff, you'll know how to do one. But if you do knit and you like the little bit more of a stretchy cuff that a knit cuff will give you, I'll show you how to do a knitted cuff. But we're going to isolate out that one chain that belongs to this side, and we are going to go down through the top of that loop. We are only going to use the back loop, just that one back loop of the stitch. Yes, just that one. Okay, we'll pull our yarn through till we're almost to the end, because we are going to need to tie a knot in here to hold these two together. We're going to come over here to this corner and do the same thing. Find the chain that goes to this side, and we are only going to go through the one outside loop of that stitch, okay, which would be, I think they would call it the front loop because it's on this side. Now here's where I tie my knot so that these two pieces stay together, and I do just exactly that, tie a nice tight little knot. Now as I'm stitching, I normally hold this in here and I work over it so it gets worked in. I will weave that in later so it's not in the way of me really showing you how exactly I stitch these together to get that nice little look. All right, we've already went through this stitch and this one here, so we're working in this one here and this one here. Now we've just attached this piece, so we need to come back over this side, and we're going to go down from the top down through that back loop only. Pull our yarn through, and we're going to do the same thing on the other side. The loop that is closest to us and not the furthest away, we're going to go into this one that is towards the outer edge of the square from the top down. And we're just going to do that on each stitch all the way through. You should have, and that's going to automatically get whipped into there anyway, you should have the same number of stitches on each side. So your stitches should correspond with each other pretty easily through there. Okay, now we're going to come to this one, go from the top down. Now, once I get a little further up in through here, I'll show you the other thing that I do just to help keep it nice and square. Get that thing to stay out of the way for a minute, that tail. And I do have the right sides facing up. Okay, the right sides are facing up, and I'm stitching these together. Every now and then I will take this string and I will give it a little tug. I will hold back here and I will give a little tug so it tightens up all of my stitches. And we'll get that nice, neat little braided together stitch like we had on the other piece. And we got to back up to the top. And I'm going to stitch this all the way over to the other corner. And today we'll be talking about granny squares. If you're unsure how to do a granny square, I will show you how to do a granny square. For the back extension, I'm going to put 2 of them side by side. My granny squares, 3 rows come out to 2.5 inches, which gives me a 5-inch opening for my neck in this sweater, which is good enough. And then I'm going to continue on with that in the pattern. Give that a little pull. And it's coming together. No bumps. None whatsoever. So I'm just going to continue on sewing this together just like this. Making sure that I don't go into one loop twice. That'll throw us off. This also lines everything up. Your holes will line up with the stitch immediately across from it, which makes your pattern continue on. Ooh, yeah, we're going to jerk something off the table here in a minute. That long bunch of string there. Almost knocked my glassware over. That wouldn't have been good. And see how we're getting this little braided effect here. I don't know if you can see that right along the seam. It adds a little bit of extra detail. And then once I get this sewed up, I will show you. What the heck did I do? I don't know why that knotted up around there, but we just slid it down. It'll be fine. We'll do the extension on this other cuff for anyone who might have missed it last week. Showing you how to do the granny stitch in the round and decrease at the same time. I don't know how many I decreased down to or how many decreases I did. I'll have to look because I want to make sure that my sweater sleeves at least end up the same size. If the decreases aren't done in the same spot, it's okay. I just want to make sure I have the same decreases per row. And I'll have to look and count them around the other sleeve. What in the world is going on with this thread? It's fuzzy. Making sure I'm going through the loop too and not through the fibers. That'll make it grab. So how is everyone today? Good morning, Twisted. You're welcome, Yvonne. I'm that's what I do. Hey Sarah, how are you? My messages got stuck. Becky hasn't crocheted in months. Ladybug, it's just fine. These will be posted to my other account. They will be there forever for public view. And I'm here to assist you along the way in finishing up yours. No big deal. Life happens. Not everybody crochets at the same pace. It's okay. Nice little, you can see it now, that it's creating right there along that seam line. The little sideways V's right above my thumb. It's like bringing this part of this stitch and this part of this stitch together as one, and it makes a really neat looking braid effect on there. While I'm sewing this up, I had some fun yesterday. I revamped my Pinterest account and I changed it over to, actually it's kind of personal and business. It's just all my personal pages were made secret. And I have a couple of boards on there where I'm going to be sharing the things that I make from my own patterns and the things that I am making and have made from other people's patterns. And I do have a couple of other boards that I left public, like the exercise and the health and, you know, the herbs and things like that. Informational boards. Oh, it's fine. Not a biggie. Not a biggie. So we are sewing this together. Now there's multiple different things that you can do with your sleeve. We'll talk about these sleeves. Your sleeve could have been more fitted if you stopped further back and are waiting to do the extension, or started the extension from last week when I showed you how to do the last one. You would extend it using the granny stitch. You could work it flat if you wanted to and then seam this area up here again, or you could work it in the round, which you are eventually going to have to work it in the round after you get it to length, so that you can, well, if it's a fitted sleeve, you won't decrease it. You'll just work it for length. So you could work it back and forth if you didn't like the idea of working it in the round. If you did a more belled type sleeve, I'm going to show you how to decrease that down so it doesn't really make your sleeve much longer. It just kind of brings your sleeve closed in on itself where you stopped. And then I'm going to, there's a little crocheted cuff that you can do to give yourself like a little crocheted ribbed cuff. And I'm going to have to look that up, but I do believe they use like a front post and back post type deal to do that. But I think there's also another one where you just work in the back loops only on every row, and it gives you a rippled effect. But none of those are as stretchy as I like and as the knit cuff will give you. So I'm also going to show you one cuff. I'll show you the crocheted cuff, and I will pull that yarn out and use it to make my knitted cuff. And then I will do my other knitted cuff. So I like to mix styles together a lot. And what did I just do? Okay. Yeah, I like to mix knit and crochet. Sometimes I'll do a knitted piece and embroider on top of it. I like to mix them. It looks so good when you mix them. Okay, and continue on we go. We're almost halfway there. I want to at least get through. I should have went ahead and sewed this up, but I did want to do this again. So there's like twice the chance that somebody would have gotten to seen you know, the sleeve sewn up. And we'll do the extensions. And then we'll see what time it is. I might have time to show you how to do the granny squares if you want to do, well, definitely I'll make the time to show you how to do the granny squares. So you can work on getting some of those done between now and next week, because we definitely will have to do another one. I'm not going to try and just rush through this. I'm trying to see which loop I went through last. That one. And there went my rice steamer. I should go in there and turn that off. I was through them more than the loop, almost. Alright, that one's there. And we're only, again, sewing through one loop, which is the very outside loop. If you're looking at a granny square, which is just like a hexagon, on both sides, I'm using this very, very outside row here to stitch together on both pieces. And I do have the right sides facing up, so I am seaming it on the right side through the top of the back loops of each piece. Actually, on this one, it'd be the front loop, the one closest to you. Already went through that one. We might have to work on, I definitely want to get the extensions done and show you how to do a granny square. So yeah, I'm sitting trying to plan this out, time management here, and, you know, be as efficient as I can, but not, you know, rush. I know I got a couple of people who aren't quite as far into the project as some of us are. And if I slow things down a little bit, that might do a little bit of good. I'm not working on this other than making the granny squares outside of this. So that helps for me to slow down with you guys if you have time to work on it, you know, throughout the week in between the crochet alongs. You know, that's great. If not, each one of these that I remember to set the music right. I had to set the music right on this one, and I hope the first little bit I hope I got it shut off before it actually turned my live on, because I realized, uh-oh. And I didn't want to have to end the live and come back on to be able to post it. So hopefully I don't have an issue posting it. I can always make a baby doll sized one. Give it to my sister for the dolls that she makes. And show you the basic construction and where to stop at what point. And I could probably do a 3 or 4 hour live and get one done. But again, it would be really tiny, you know, for a baby doll. It wouldn't be an adult sized for sure. But they all start out the same way, from one of these little thingies right here, but a hexagon has 6 clusters instead of 4 for a granny square. Whether you make it for a baby doll, a toddler, you know, a young adult or older, they all start the same way. Have to be careful. All these different colors, I have to watch and make sure that I don't put 2 stitches in one loop, because then that'll knock everything wonky, especially if you do it a couple times. You'll come up to the end and you'll be at your last stitch on one piece and you'll have 4 or 5 stitches left on the other. So make sure you're only going through each loop once, sewing across. And you can tell that by pulling down on it. It'll pull the loop down. So I know I need to go into this one here up top, this one. Same thing for when you're, down at the bottom. You just pull on it and it'll pull that loop up. I've had to take out many a seam not paying attention. Alright, sweetie, I'll check it out. I sure will. This is the thing about colors that are really, really close. You can't tell where one ends and the other one begins. I pulled it too tight then. There we go. Get it to get out of the way. What it's actually doing is those 2 outer stitches around the edge, it's binding those 2 together and pinching the others. And it's actually, I think, one loop. Maybe that's the string in between. Somehow it's making a nice little V. I noticed that one time when I sewed it up and I was like, oh, I like that little effect that we got there. It was a perk that I discovered on accident. I think it was because I had right sides facing up, and normally most people, when they seam pieces together, they have the right sides facing together instead of up and out. Have a good day, Becky. Eat something yummy. Yeah, my lunch is waiting. We might have to put the extensions off depending on how much time we have. The granny stitch, basically, when we were working it in the round, you can work that flat. When you first start out the row, you have to chain up for your stitch height, which you always do no matter what you're working on in crochet. You have to have your stitch height for the stitch that you're going to start that row with. Otherwise it goes really, really wonky, and it'll roll your edge. After a couple of rows, your edge won't be sharp and square, it'll start rolling in. And you do that, and then you have your chains, and then you skip the clusters and work in the spaces just like you did when you're working the hexagon. It's just like working a straight row of this from one corner to the next, but you're going to turn your work instead of working in the round or working around a shape. I don't know if you can hear my dogs. Okay, I don't know what they were barking at, but they're calm for now. And we are almost to the end. And I will show you how to do a decrease row on this sleeve. And then once I got one decrease row and show you how to start the next one, you should be able to decrease it down to the cuff size that you want to fit around your arm. And then when we come back next, I will show you how to do the little cuffs. But I also do want to show you how to do a granny square in case you want to do granny square extensions between the back and between the two half pieces on the back side. And I'm also going to, excuse me, use the granny squares to continue that design element around the front of the sweater, because once you open the back, it opens up the front. You want the fronts of your sweater to come together, touch, overlap, however you would like it to do so. And we are going to either use the granny stitch and work extra rows just up one side of the cardigan, and work a couple of rows to match the space gap that we put in the back. But we'll have half on one side and half on the other. And it'll be easier to explain when we get to that point, which we will be doing that next week. So we should be finishing up for sure next week. And I'll be sewing together granny squares just like this. And I'm definitely going to have to, I might have to lengthen the bottom of it some depending on how much length a granny square will give it, because I want it to be a certain length. So I might have to work some granny stitch along the bottom, back and forth, until it's as long as I want it to be. Coming up on the last couple stitches here. Now we are back up to our corner chain on that side, top and quarter chain on that side, and then what I do is I take and run that right back through both of those loops, not my own, both of those loops on each side, and I do my little fasten off in through that loop and in through that loop. And then I automatically go ahead, turn it to the wrong side, and I'm going to fish this in underneath of here where I just seamed this up through some of these stitches here in my seam. And I'll pull that right on through. Okay, so that's in there, and I can go ahead. I don't snip these all the way off. I leave a little bit of length on them until after they have been washed, because the fibers all relax and it pulls in some of that extra, and if it's flushed down with what you've just cut it off from, it pulls it back when it could be sticking out on the front side. So I wait until all the fibers are all relaxed and in spot, and then I cut off all of my ends. But they are all woven in before they go into the washing machine. The only things that I make that I don't wash are my stuffed animals. So, yeah. Now, we're talking about this sleeve opening. Let me take this camera back up a little bit, and I might not be able to see the comments as well, so bear with me until we get done with this. This is the opening for your sleeve now, okay? It's really big and wide, which I wanted a wider sleeve. Now, I'm going to decrease this opening just like, you know, sealing up a bread bag. We are going to not make it longer, but we are going to make it come in gently. And I did it on the last one in 3 rows. And I need to look and see how many I decreased on the first row. So on the first row, from the seam here, we have, that looks like a wonky one. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Looks like 7, maybe 8, because we just had a chain here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hook my yarn in and do my stitch height. Hook my yarn in at my shoulder seam where I did my sewing. Do my stitch height, and then start with the granny stitch, and we're going to do some decreases. And we did it in 3 rows, and I forgot how many I had. 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, maybe 8. Okay, because the last one should have been a cluster and not just a the other thing. Yeah. So now I'm going to do all white because I've got some pretty large gaps of white in here, and I want to continue that on with my sleeves. So what I'm actually going to do, I'm still going to be looking at the right side of my fabric. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to attach the white back onto my crochet hook with a slip knot and reattach right in that seam with a slip stitch. So I'm not going into any gaps. I'm going to go right into here. So right in to the fabric and slip stitch it right there. Okay. A slip stitch, you'll pull a loop through, and then you'll immediately pull that loop right through the loop on your crochet hook, and you're in there now, and you can start doing your crocheting. I'm going to put a cluster right here because on either side below we have gaps. So actually we shouldn't have a cluster here, we should have a gap, and a cluster should go right here. So I'm going to chain my chain height. Actually, what I'm going to do is something totally different. We are going to attach this right over here in this gap, right here. And we are going to do a cluster right there. Chain 2 after your slip stitch, and you're going to do 3 double crochets right there in that gap, right off from your where you did your shoulder seam. We are not doing the chain 2s in between. We didn't do it all the way through, so we're not going to do it here. We're going to go straight into another cluster, but I'm going to show you how you do a decrease. A decrease is done over the space, the center double crochet of the cluster, and the space. You're putting your 3 double crochets for your cluster in those spaces. So 1 double crochet in the next space, go into the 3rd double crochet here, the top of that stitch. Pull those together. It seems to hold them together a little bit tighter as you do it. And then the 3rd double crochet goes into the next chain, or what would have been a chain 2 space, but the next gap there. And that's a granny square decrease, or granny stitch decrease. We're going to continue on. I'm going to do 2 more clusters in the next 2 spaces here, and then we'll do another decrease. I want to make sure that we get at least 7 of them in here so that my sleeves are even. I want my cuffs to be even. Let me do one more cluster. I don't know how big your sleeves are, so you can't do as many decreases as I am doing, because you might not have the same number of clusters and spaces around the end of your cuff, depending on your gauge and how many rows you did around for your hexagon. So everybody's count is going to be different. That's what I love about this. You can take and make it in any size. You don't need a pattern. You just hold it up to yourself, see where you like how it fits at what point, and you make extensions from there. And here I am just going away. This one needs to be a decrease. I'll make this real tight right here. And you just have to keep turning your project around as you go. I think that's where crafters get such big muscles, from turning all this heavy blankets and heavy things around and around and around. If anyone needs me to demonstrate any of these stitches that I'm currently doing, please let me know. I have plenty of time to show you. There's plenty of rounds coming up to show you how to do this. Now each round you're going to decrease more and more. I think I did like 2. Ooh, I skipped way over that center cluster. I did 2 stitches, 2 clusters before I did a decrease, and I think I did that all the way around. I'll have to look and see. But yeah, it took me 3 rounds to get it decreased. And you can see how it's laying in. It's all going to start going in now because we're decreasing every row. So the length of your sleeve will not get any longer until you go to do your cuff. And that'll be the final length of your sleeve. Trying to keep it close together to see if that makes a difference, and it doesn't. It's still going to spread out that one granny stitch decrease no matter how you try and do it. I tried to do it several different ways, but it's not going to be a real big focal point on your project because it's going to be you know, inverted more so because of the big belled sleeves. So when we come around here, I'll show you how to end this row and start the next row. And you will continue to do this until your sleeve cuff is the circumference that you feel comfortable having around your arm. So if you like a kimono style, you might like it big and belled, and you just might do this granny stitch with no decreases and leave it just wide and flowy. If you want to close it up a little bit, you're going to want to do your decreases on this portion here. Going to put another decrease here. And it's pretty much wherever you decide that you want to do it. Now, if you want to get real mathematical, you can go around and count how many spaces you have, because with this granny stitch, you're always working in the spaces unless you're decreasing. And you can evenly divide, you know, how many decreases you want to do and figure out how many stitches in between. I just place them all around. Especially when, you know, I'm working on something that might be for me or for family. Now here we are at the end. We have one cluster here at the end, one cluster at the beginning. We're going to come over here to this cluster in the top of the first double crochet, not the, well, that is the top of your, yeah, the top of your chain 2. Or chain 3. We're doing double crochets. It should have been a chain 3. You're going to do a slip stitch to join your rows together. And you can see how it's even laying kind of flattened into the hole. You can see how it's going to continue to go just like that. So you can do as many rows around here as you want to get it to the actual cuff size that fits around your wrist that you want. When you start your next row, I would, and it's all up to you, the craft. You can either chain 2 and come over here into this next space and start your first 3 double crochet cluster, or you get where you sit, because you're going to have to chain right here anyway. It's up to however you want to do it. So, thank you. Is that Becky? About the froggy. Sassy. I got this froggy from a creator here on TikTok called Get Crafty Brooks. A link to her Etsy shop is in my bio in my link tree. She does customs. She's got 15 millimeter and 19 millimeter beads that she puts on either Susan Bates or boy hooks, whichever you like. She does customs. She's got a bunch of different toppers, a bunch of different beads, glow in the dark, clear, printed, not printed. Yeah, so check her out. So we have, I'm going to go ahead and do this chain 3 and leave this right here. Set this off to the side, and I'm going to show you how to do a granny square for those of you that want to do a granny square. I will finish off those decreases on my cuffs, and I will have all of my granny squares ready next week to go around the outer edge and do the back extension, and we will finish up the ribbing on the cuffs next week. Now, for the colors that I was using, see here. All right. This one's been laying on the desk a mess here for a minute. You're going to start just like you normally would. You're going to attach your yarn to your crochet hook. You can either tie it on or do it like a slip knot. And then from that point, oh shoot, we got to do magic circle. I got to show you magic circle. I hold the yarn between my thumb and my ring finger. I wrap my index and middle finger, starting by going over the index finger, bringing up under the middle finger, and making an X. I twist my hand over here and hold the yarn with my pinky right there. Take my crochet hook with the hook facing downward. Put it under the first string, grab the second string. As I pull the string out, I'm going to bring my fingers together a little bit, push my hook down in there, and I'm going to twist. It's kind of hard to see with that darker yarn. And I'm going to twist it so it looks like that. Put it in a light spot on the desk. You can see it a little better. Now from this point, I'm going to come over here to this yarn going to my pinky, and I'm going to pull that loop through the loop that was on my hook. Now I can drop all of my fingers out of the way, and we have magic circle to start working our granny square in. So we are going to do this with double crochet, or let me do half double because that's what I'm doing these in. Half double crochet. So we're going to chain 2, which is the chain height for half double crochet. Yarn over, go into the circle. You should be working over 2 strands of yarn. It is twisted up in there. Don't untwist it. Leave it twisted just like that. You will work over both of those strands of yarn. Not just one, both. Okay? Into the circle and do your half double crochet. You're going to do 3 of those. And immediately follow those 3 half double crochets with a chain 2. And we are going to repeat that 3 more times. Okay, that's 3 half doubles. There's 2. And there's 3. And we're going to chain 2. We need 2 more. So there's 1, 2, 3 half doubles and a chain 2. And 3 more half doubles. And a chain 2. Now we have 4. 1, 2, 3, 4 clusters of half doubles with chain 2s in between each one. So at this point we are going to slip stitch back up over here to the first. Actually, we're going to pull it shut first. I'm not going to have you try to slip stitch it shut. You're going to take this tail that's hanging down here and you're going to pull it. And it's going to pull that hole shut. So now you are right here where we started with our chain 2. We are going to go into the top of the chain 2, both loops of the stitch, and we are going to perform a slip stitch. We're going to yarn over, pull our loop through, and immediately go right through the loop on the hook. That has just joined everything into a granny square. Okay, so now I should have changed colors. Most people, and I'll show you how to do this again, will just fasten off their granny square, which I do a chain 2, and then I snip my yarn and I pull my loop straight through and then just compress your knot down to your work. We go to our next color. If you're doing change colors, we're going to go and do this color. We just did this piece right here in the middle. We're going to go do this second row. And we're using the reef for that. That's not enough. Thought I could use that little piece that we cut off earlier from the sewing thread. And we're getting ready to cut this off too. If you see this happen in your skein of yarn, do not just snip that. You are cutting plies. And these will unply as you snip this. These will unroll. You're going to come back here a little distance back, about 2 inches back from where that is, and you're going to cut that out. Do not ever crochet or knit this right on up into your project. It makes a weak spot that will cause holes in your project. Shame on the manufacturer. Shame, shame. So, again, we are going to do a slip knot. And you can start right in the same place. I don't like starting right where I've got a knot. Go right into where you've done your chain 2 for your corners. And we are going to attach this with a slip stitch. Okay, and now we're going to chain 2. And I'm immediately, you can do a granny square any way you want to, I'm immediately going to do a 3 double crochet cluster right there in that chain 2 spot. Okay, so there's 1, 2, and 3. This is almost the same way we started our hexagon, but instead of having 4 clusters in the first round, we had 6. We're going to chain 2, and we're going to go over to this other corner here in our chain 2 space. Put 3 double crochets, a chain 2, 3 more double crochets. Did I say double? I'm doing half doubles. Sorry. Yeah, half double crochets because that's what the rest of them are. On to the next corner. We did 3 double crochets, a chain 2, and 3 double crochets in that one corner. We're going to go to the next corner and repeat that. 3 half double crochets. Come on, Mel. Chain 2. And then 3 more half double crochets into that same spot. And it's getting to be pretty much of a pattern. You've got 3 double crochets, chain 2, 3 double crochets, chain 2. It's the same thing all the way through until you get to your corners. Your corners get 3 double crochets, chain 2, and 3 double crochets. Now on this next row, I'm going to be changing over to the white yarn. And if you don't like snipping and all of that when you do your color changes, I'm going to show you how to do your color change here to where we don't really have to fasten off the yarn. Now we've come up here to where we did that 3 double crochet cluster at the beginning, and we need to finish up that corner. So what we're going to do is put 3 double crochets right here. And we're going to do our chain 2. Now here is when I do my color changes. For those of you who are experienced crocheters, you'll understand this. When I go to do the last swoop of the stitch, that's when I'm going to do it. So I'm getting ready to do a slip stitch, and there's only one swoop. There's one yarn over and pull through. So here's where I'm going to do my color change. I'm going to go ahead and put my crochet hook into the top of that chain 2 there that we started at the beginning. All right, I'm going to drop this one. Just drop it. I'm going to grab the next color, which I'm using on the next round, which we're doing all of our granny square like this. So we're going to the white color round now. So I'm going to fold the yarn back over on itself like this. Give me a 3 or 4 inch tail here. And I'm going to make a little loop. That goes right onto my crochet hook, just like that. I pull it through as if to do my slip stitch. My round is now joined. What I do is I snip the old yarn. Now I'm going to take the yarn going to my skein, the 2 tails, the new yarn and the old yarn, and I'm going to hold those right there together, and I'm going to work over them when I do this first 3 double crochets right here on this half of this corner, or half double crochets. I probably said double crochets again, and if I do, I'm sorry. I need to get it right. All right, now we've got those in there, and if I turn this over, you can see I've started the weave-in process on those 2. They're secure for me to let them go and just keep on going, which avoids a lot of knots in your work. Now we're going to come up to an edge or a side space. It's not like a corner where we're putting 2 clusters with the chain 2. We're only putting 1 cluster in these spaces here. Just like doing the granny stitch. This is where the granny stitch came about for the granny square. That 1 cluster goes right there. We chain 2 and we go over to the next corner space. And we are going to do our half doubles, 3 half doubles, chain 2, 3 more half doubles in the same space. And we just keep doing that pattern all the way around and join it with a slip stitch, and we have completed a granny square. Almost. I'm getting ahead of my video here with my description of what we're doing. We are finishing up this granny square here. We have 2 more sides to do. And then these are going to be used for the extension across the back. I recommend a 4 to 5 inch extension between the 2 back pieces because that gives you plenty of room for your neck. Now, when I come back through, I am going to put a neck collar band and front band on my cardigan, and I will be able to show you that a little bit better when we come to it. It's hard to show you now, and I will do my bottom extension as I do that because I don't know how long one granny square is going to make it. I'll have to pin one on there when we get finished today and see where it hangs, and then make the adjustment with my rows, any additional that I need, so that way my granny squares, when I do it around the collar and end up on the corner, make sure that they line up with the bottom corner of my sweater. I don't want them to be short by this much or have the granny square, the last granny square stop here and here's the bottom of my sweater, or here's the bottom of my sweater and here's the last granny square hanging short. And I'll show you how you can fix that too. So if you need to extend the bottom of your sweater, unless it's more than 2.5 inches, don't do the extensions just yet, and I will show you how to get it a perfect extension so you don't have to keep taking it in and out to get it the length you want. So that, I think, is going to end us for today. We are almost an hour, 4 minutes short of an hour. Does anybody have any questions on their hexagon cardigan or any issues on the cardigan they're working on? Running into any problems? Needing any extra instruction? Now is the best time to ask. No? I'll give it just a minute. Give people time to type in, "Hey, Tella, how are you?" Cheryl, welcome in. We are just finishing up. Oh, it's going to give me a puzzle to do. We are just finishing up our crochet along for this week. Oh, I hope that's close enough. There we go. Now it's going to let me back in. Hello, how are you? Sam and Dean. Crazy. How are you today? Thank you for the like, Sarah. Okie doke. So I am going to go ahead and end for today. And as usual, by at least tomorrow evening, this session will be uploaded to my YT account. So it is there for when life happens and you fall behind, you miss one of the crochet alongs. It's not like the end of the world. Yes, I'm going to have an awesome weekend. Catch you in a little bit, Sarah. So that it will be on the YT account by tomorrow evening. I hope to have it tonight, but definitely by tomorrow evening. It depends on how long the processing takes on this end before I can upload it on the other end. And each of these are in a folder on my YT account marked accordingly, the knit along and the crochet along. The knit along I missed yesterday totally. I am very, very sorry. I don't know what happened to my fudgy little brain over here. But didn't miss anything. It was all just knit for length on that front piece. It should match the back piece. But again, on the YT account, they are labeled KAL and CAL, and they are open to the public. Thank you, Tullamore. I have had so much. There's been people come to me that say that that exact sweater is on sale in department stores in Ireland. I know I notified all my testers. I have come up on a copyright issue, and I may not be able to publish the patterns. I'm not diving deep into it right now. The sweaters are still being tested. But as far as being able to publish the pattern, that's kind of been put on hold temporarily while I do some research. So I am going to put a video out about that, and maybe see if, some of my followers can't help do a little research, tag people they might know about, copyright research and things like that, to see if I can't track down who this does belong to, and go from there. So, but yeah. So yeah, there was another person that I follow that on one of her, she had posted my video on her story, and the gentleman had told her that it was on sale in department stores in Ireland, that exact sweater. I've tried looking it up online, but not every department store over there has a website. So, if anybody knows anybody who lives in Ireland that could give me a heads up on whether that is actually true or not, it would be a great deal appreciated, so that I could track this down and kind of bring this one project to closure. I'm going to go ahead and thank everyone for joining me today. Thank you, Tella, for the research. I really do appreciate it. And anyone else who wants to help research this, I would really, really appreciate it. The sweater is pinned. Two of my pins are pinned for that sweater. And the first one is the completed sweater. So you'll have an idea of what it looks like if you do want to help me research. So everyone have a great rest of your day. TGIF, have a wonderful weekend. And as usual, may all your stitch counts match, and happy crafting.